perky blonde teenager said as she stepped into my personal space. "Is it just you?" I took a small step back. "No, I'm expecting someone. He just texted and said he'd be late. We'd like to sit barside, please." "Sure thing, ma'am. Right this way." She led me through the dining room, where I did my best to avoid eye contact with the other patrons, and into a dimly lit bar. A massive fish tank inserted into one wall was the focal point of the room. Soft lantern lighting and a mixture of booze and low tables rounded out the rest of the floor seating. I sat at the U-shaped bar and surveyed the room. There were only a handful of customers, and they were all like me, alone. One guy in a corner booth caught my eye, and he gave me a drunken smile. I gave him a tight smile back, then turned to the bartender as he set a napkin down in front of me. "What can I get ya?" He was probably mid-20s, sandy hair, handsome face, and athletic body. I glanced at his name tag. "I'll have a gin and tonic, please, Zach." He gave me a toothy grin. "Coming up." I swiveled my bar stool to watch the drunk guy in the corner. He was on the phone, yelling at the person on the other end. Whatever the exchange, he obviously didn't like it, because his face was getting angrier and angrier as the conversation wore on. I wasn't sure, but I thought I made out the faint markings of a black eye and split lip. As his server came by, he grabbed her wrist. I didn't realize I'd come off the bar stool until the bartender set down my drink. "It's okay. Celeria can handle herself, I promise." "Because she's a werewolf?" I asked. He lifted one eyebrow. "That and she's a local legend on the island here. She fights over on Phantom Street at the Enchanted Gym. But if it makes you feel better..." He turned and shoved a wall of magic toward the drunk guy who still had hold of Celeria's wrist. Drunk guy jerked back in his seat, dropping Celeria's arm. Zach winked at me. "There." "Impressive," I said. He shrugged. "Comes in handy some nights when the waitstaff isn't comprised of Celeria." I laughed. "I bet." Zach groaned when the drunk guy staggered our way, his movement stiff and jerky. Reaching inside his suit jacket, the drunk guy withdrew a flask and took a sip of the drink inside. I snorted. "Is that allowed?" Zach shrugged. "He's been doing it off and on all night." The empty bar stool next to me slammed into my shins as the man stumbled and half fell against the bar. Not realizing or not caring, the guy slammed his hand down on the bar, then blinked at me. I wasn't sure, but I thought he was going for a wink. But instead, he just blinked at me with his black eye. "Barkeep," he said through a split lip. "I'll take another whiskey. Neat." Zach scowled. "And I told you, Mr. Seidon, I believe you had too much to drink before you even stepped foot in this bar. I poured you one drink. That's it." Mr. Seidon's face turned red, redder than it already was. "Do you know who you're talking to?" "Are you causing a problem, Treyton?" a deep voice behind me asked. I looked over my shoulder and saw a giant of a man scowling down at Treyton Seidon. Something about the name Treyton Seidon niggled at the back of my mind, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Instead, I smiled up at the giant. "Tank? Tank Heightley." The big guy cut his eyes to me, forehead wrinkled in confusion. Recognition dawned and a huge grin split his wide face nearly in two. "Shayla Loci? Is it really you? I heard you were back on the island." "Yep, been back for..." "Shayla," Treyton Seidon interrupted. "That's a pretty name for a pretty girl." His hand jerked out and grabbed my arm. "How's about I buy you a drink?" I looked down at his hand, then back up at his ruddy face. He seemed to have a hard time focusing on me, and his breathing was shallow and labored. "First, you're going to want to remove your hand. Second, are you feeling okay?" Treyton lifted one side of his mouth in a creepy smile. "Be feeling better when I get you..." Tank's huge...